Henry McCulluah, the McCulluah for Kansas campaign.
Right here, cheers.
And the person responsible for me doing this. So if you want to blame anyone, Henry's the guy.
I get credit.
He has been a tremendous help. I couldn't ask for a better partner in the campaign.
Thank you.
And, yeah, absolutely. And then I couldn't ask for a better partner in life. My wife, of course. And go through a little bit of the agenda. Again, not a whole lot tonight, but I did want to actually put forth some plans. And this is why I'm running. I think these things can get done in the next 4 years, and believe with some help, it can get done actually a lot quicker than that. And we'll
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So first and foremost about me, I have kind of a, I don't want to say checkered, just a history that's pretty.
Yeah, don't use checkers.
I'm the checkered past, not him.
My time has been split 3 ways. With entrepreneurship, I started off opening a bar, got into real estate, and own a small startup that has to do with government technology. A lot of my time has been spent in the military. I've done 4 overseas tours. I've done a couple relief efforts here stateside. So in the last 20 years, about 10 of that has been doing something for Uncle Sam. My government service includes service with the Secretary of State, the Department of Veteran Affairs. That was a lot of fun because I was managing nationwide projects for an organization who cannot go anywhere. And then some time with the legislative research and my civic activities. My education kind of describes what I've been doing the last 20, 25 years. Pretty decent education. When it comes to municipal politics, the majority of my education is in my master's degree, public administration. I, along with a cohort, went through the city manager track at the University of Kansas. They have the 5th best program in the nation. I didn't get the city manager designation because I didn't do an internship. So, but it was a very good education. And then I do want to highlight my education at the Kansas Law Enforcement Training Center and at the Lewis F. Garland Fire Academy. It's actually one of the best fire academies in the world. So it's in San Angelo, Texas. So as the agenda stated, we'll talk about homelessness. Right now, Topeka, not unlike many cities, is we're having a big problem with homelessness. We look at some of the larger cities, San Francisco, San Diego, LA. Of course, they're having major issues, but Topeka is as well. The point in time count that we do happens once a year in a freezing month. So we really don't know how many homeless people we have in the city. All we can say is that we all have noticed the increase of people on the streets. Why this is important is there is a drug that is moving westward, and if you've ever been on YouTube and you go through and you see the zombies of Kensington Park, there's a new drug on the streets called Trank that is completely debilitating people to the point to where they cannot move and it eats people's limbs. So people are getting their legs sawed off, etc. They're losing limbs because of this drug. When that does hit Kansas, and rest assured it will, our homeless situation is going to get probably 5 to 10 times worse. So we've got to do something now before we end up like a lot of the bigger cities in the United States that are just really dealing with the infancy of that situation. Who are the homeless? Unintended consequences of cost of colored money. I think it was in the 1980s, social work got together and they said, hey, when it comes to homelessness, it's always about housing first. Just get somebody in a home, because if they're not in a home, you can't do anything else. You can't get them a job, can't get them a driver's license, etc. And that's That's correct, but we've seen some things back up. And main reason is because we don't understand who the homelessness are. The majority of them are drug addicts, mentally challenged, or both. Very few homeless individuals are those who just fell on hard times. It's usually a series of bad decisions or events out of somebody's control. All right. And when I talk about homelessness, really I'm generalizing to like perpetual homelessness. All right. The people who are able to bounce back are typically those who are not mentally challenged or not addicted to a substance. When it comes to the housing first, we thought by putting people in housing that would help, but it turns out that when we look at homeless encampments, there are different characteristics that we can kind of apply to that demographic, right? They do have a sense of community, all right? So when we pull people out of their community and just put them in a random apartment someplace, they lose those relationships. They lose those friends. So it's really important if we're going to clear out homeless encampments that we put them kind of together in a community. And the cost of color money, what I wanted to say about that is a lot of our funds go towards housing vouchers for homeless people. And that's okay, but the cost is really expensive. We spend a lot of money putting individuals in one-bedroom apartments when we could be doing other things with that money, and I'll talk about that. Some of the reason we do that is because we're kind of hamstrung on what we can do with the money. It's only for specific things, right? You have to give someone an apartment with a one bathroom, it has to be so many square feet, etc. So those types of controls hurt our progress. Key to successful housing alternatives. We need to provide housing in small clusters. I talked about the sense of community that people have, especially the homeless people. We can build in 8 to 12 unit groupings, all right, small clusters, and they need to be spread out. You can't have one massive homes. You can't. You need a mix of household types. So just like with any urban living, you want old people living next to the young people, next to families. So it really does keep the sense of community. And you want to have defined boundaries. All right, that is extremely important. It doesn't mean you can't have a tiny home village next to a McCulluah Farms, but you need to make sure it's clearly defined. All right, you can do that with either natural or man-made barriers or through other design elements, right? So what I want to do is I want to establish a series of urban campgrounds. These would be on city-owned property that we own right now. The city owns a lot of it. All right, I think it should be a public-private partnership where we can get some funding through either donations of businesses. You can get some funding from civic groups. I'm part of the Knights of Columbus. I know that we, as an organization, would help fund these types of encampments that have either a barrier like a fence, public bathrooms where people can at least stay clean and sanitary, right? Whatever you do for least in the world, right? These things can be done very inexpensively, and what it does is it gives homeless people a place to do their camping or to live, and it helps all of the support organizations. They know exactly where these people are. Okay, so the mission is going to bring shower trailers around. They know they can go there. If people want to bring food, they know where these encampments are. And if you disperse them throughout the city, you don't have one district or one neighborhood shouldering the entire burden. With a lot of things, out of sight, out of mind. But if we have these small little encampments throughout town, the whole city gets involved and takes care of the problem. The next type of housing option should be supportive housing. There is a lot of debate over whether or not this is a good option. It's basically group homes with some supervision. I can tell you as a landlord for the Shelter Care Plus program, a lot of individuals are not ready to live on their own. They're just not. Okay, and if we stick them in an apartment, what happens is they destroy the apartment, or their friends come in and destroy the apartment. It puts a bad taste in the building owner's mouth, and it does no good for that individual, right? They need the support. A lot of people just can't do it on their own. They're not prepared yet. Doesn't mean they can't get there, but they need that support. Shelter Care Plus vouchers for housing is around like $650 per person. $650 per person for a house. That could be, that could be $4 or $5 grand. That could pay for the house. We'd have the thing paid for. You talk about food or your utilities. It'd be a lot cheaper, and I think a lot more constructive. It'd be very, very difficult for placement, luckily. And the last thing is tiny home villages. We've seen this be successful in different areas of the country. The city would have to change some city ordinances to allow a different type of density standard for these type of villages, but very, very cost-effective way to house people. Again, when we talk about $650 a month for a single person, that can pay for a container home pretty dang quickly. There's a builder here in town that says it costs them about $30,000 to put a fully furnished container home together. Container home is usually 40 by 10 shipping container size. But I lived in one in a couple countries, and they are not bad. So, those were my comments on homelessness. It really does start with housing, but we need to really fix the way, or fix our idea of what housing should and can be. We'll talk about city roads. We'll talk about the pavement condition index, engineering audits, paving alternatives, and then the priorities. This is actually the street I grew up on in Topeka. This is Eugene Street. As you see, there's no curb and gutter, it's falling apart, and it hasn't been touched in, I don't know, ever. I just thought I'd put that up there. The PCI, this is the pavement condition index. It's basically a grade that an outside organization gives cities on their streets, right? We have, I'll just call it green, yellow, and red, all right? About half of our streets in the city are fair condition, all right? Fair condition to satisfactory, and then the remaining are fell to poor. So let's take a look. We have about 700 miles of roadway. 50% is what they consider good, all right? But for bad, the 0 to 55 range, that's a good, what is it, 27% or so? That's a quarter. The thing I want to point out though is this middle range, 117 centerline miles of network is considered in between. And that's where I think we really need to focus, because that in between area of quality is pretty dang big. All right. So yeah, we have some good roads. You have a lot of really bad roads. But I would be willing to bet that most of these are on the lower end of that middle spectrum, if that makes sense. Roads are the first thing people see. They're extremely important for a city's economic development. 20 so years ago, Topeka had fairly decent roads, or at least better. But as we've seen the last few decades, our streets have been falling apart. Someone brought up the Topeka Boulevard Bridge earlier today. When the bridge was built, that concrete has lasted, and it's done really well. But the concrete on North and South Topeka Boulevard hasn't done so well. And I think it has to do, this is just a hunch, I don't know for sure, but I think it has to do with like the mix of the concrete mixes. So you have different cements that will go in to concrete. Some of them will flake up more, some of it will break up. If it's permeable, water will get inside, freeze, and break it apart. We have a quality problem at the city of Topeka. All right, and it needs to be dealt with. So, two things. Look at the base layer. You know, when we're putting down a road, that's going to have an impact on how our roads do, right? And you know, who are our vendors? I talked to a pavement company about a month ago and said they've been completely shut out of bidding in the city of Topeka. Why? Why? Are you too expensive? Are you too much quality? What's going on here? So I really want to dig into that. And then ensuring we have high strength concrete. So low permeability, that's like the ability for water to go all the way through, and then also having air drain, which basically just allows, if there is water going through it, it allows a place to go, so when it freezes, it doesn't completely destroy the concrete. And when we look at all the release joints and all the different roads across the town, that's the main goal. As a city, one of the first things we can do is look into paving alternatives. I'm a big proponent of using permeable pavers. It's basically a recycled plastic mesh that's super hard, and it's infilled with gravel. It allows water to go straight through, so it doesn't affect your groundwater or you have retention problems with water. It lasts longer. It's ADA compliant, and it's a lot cheaper. In Florida, I've been in some seriously nice shopping centers where they have their main roads, but all the parking on the side of the road is permeable pavers. Why? It's about drainage, it's about cost, and it looks amazing. It looks great. All right, there's no reason we can't do that as a city. Also, plastic roads. Right now, the country of India has about 10,000 miles of plastic roads. Okay? The United States has been a little bit slower at adopting it, and we should be, because we don't know what's going to happen with groundwater. The way they do these plastic roads is you take a lot of plastic bottles, you cut them up real small, they turn these little pellets, and you mix it in with your asphalt. So there is some concern that over time, it can get in the groundwater. But luckily for us, the state of Missouri is already testing it, and they're having pretty good results. All right, it's cheaper, or it's expected to be cheaper once it's more widely adopted. And guess what? Your asphalt lasts longer. They think they will get 2 to 5 years more out of their plastic asphalt than we get currently. All right, so all those bottles we're drinking, all those plastic bags, that could all be used in our roads, all right, if it's done correctly. And I am so glad that the state of Missouri is experimenting, and so we can just, live off their laurels. So. And then I just want to talk a little bit about priorities. I don't know this process behind who gets paid, right? But this is Topeka Boulevard. This is North Topeka Boulevard. Looking south, there's a Pizza Hut. I don't know if you guys can tell, but there's no curb and gutter. The center of the road is completely demolished. It's just, it's a heavily trafficked road. And it hasn't been touched in quite a long time. This is Urish Road. Now, Urish Road was a 2-lane road, and it did need to be expanded. And I probably would have said, hey, let's go ahead, if we're gonna do it, let's do it right. Big problem. When you drive down Urish Road, you see farm ground. There's no traffic. There's no commercial, and if you wanna grow and get development, that's one thing. But there's only been one old people home built, or 17th and Urish. The rest is farm ground. How much do you think that street costs? Extremely expensive. And who's benefiting from it? I wanted to put up there that was like the Sherwood Expressway. Because, from I-70 to 29th Street.
Everybody that lives in the subdivision south of there has been.
Oh, yeah, they get it. The difference here, Topeka Boulevard, you have how many restaurants, businesses, banks, and it's falling apart. Nurse Road. Okay? To me, it's just boggling. So, I do want to kind of review the process of how we prioritize which roads get looked at. It sure isn't the road I grew up on. Almost there, guys. I do want to talk about personnel review. Speak Capital Journal said the ex-city manager created 34 new positions, 7 of which made over $100,000 a year. There's some truth to that, all right? A lot of the positions were moved around and created, but there were positions created that were six-figure jobs. One of the issues with the city council right now is you have individuals who are not familiar with human resources and government, all right? There is a specific process, especially in the federal government, that you have to take in order to create a position, all right? First, you do a job analysis, all right? And there's a technical way. OPM lays it out, all right? That's Office of Personnel Management, all right? I want to look at the job analysis for these positions. One of the positions is special projects, all right? It also happened to be a great friend of our ex-city manager, and it was $125,000 a year. So let's take a look at that. I'm going to see what that's about. We also have an equity officer. I think is a pretty high-paying job. I'm not sure if we're any more equitable at the city. If we look at the streets, I don't think so. So I want to get into that. I'm well qualified to do this because I've done this work before. I want to execute some desk audits. There's a process behind the desk audit, but it's basically I'm going to sit down, I'm going to match your job description to what you actually do. And you can't BS it because I can be there all week. All right. The city council member, you're gonna get paid $20,000 regardless a year to do it. So hey, I'm just gonna sit there and I'm gonna watch everybody because I guarantee you, I will find some efficiencies in your job. And I want to look at some compensation comparisons. Look, city, state, county employees. They need raises too. All right, everything's gone up. It doesn't matter where or who you work for. You know, not all of us get an automatic raise, but it's important that we try to retain top talent. On the flip side of that, we also need to make sure that the talent we have is worth the money. I guarantee you, there's not an organization on earth that couldn't use better employees. All right, we need to make sure that the right people are serving the citizen customers of Topeka. And last but not least, let's talk about this hotel purchase because I know that was on everyone's mind. We are not the first city to buy a hotel. All right, it's actually a little bit more common than you'd like or you think. Typically, they're smaller towns, and we buy hotels for a couple different reasons. One is to protect an asset. In this case, we could make the argument that the Stormont Bell Event Center is the asset that we want to protect, and we want to make sure we have a nice hotel next to that asset. Problem is, we don't own the Expo Center. The county does. So if we were going to base it off of that, then it should have been the county looking at buying the hotel, right? Second reason cities do this is because they need the event space. Topeka doesn't need the event space. We have downtown Ramada, just got new ownership. We have a very nice brand new hotel, the Cyrus. We have event space in Topeka, so that would be right. Last reason would be ownership prevention. All right, we overpaid at auction for this piece of property. Okay, a city might do this to prevent, if they know who else is bidding on the auction, to prevent them from winning the bid. All right, why? Because you do have a lot of dirtbag property owners who will buy an asset, let it deteriorate, and then let somebody come in, get tired of it, and pay overprice for that just to be the hero. Okay? I know of plenty of developers that have come in and spent a little bit over because, God, an eyesore. Okay? We can make it profitable. And that guy, the seller, gets off. They just let a property dilapidate, and then, sometimes it backfires. We all probably know one developer or one property owner in the city of Topeka that lets some property go.
A lot of properties.
Yeah, a whole lot of properties.
A whole lot.
Personally, I don't know why we bought the hotel. I do think there is a time and place to make that investment. The problem is, we borrowed money to buy an asset that we didn't need, and we couldn't afford. Anytime the city competes with the private sector, it becomes a problem. We see it with economic development when we throw in our incentives. We give a giant corporation land. Well, if I'm the city and I buy a bunch of land just so I can try to entice businesses to come, then that cuts out your real estate guys. Right? If I, say, hey, we got this land and I know a contractor, now we're cutting out really competition that could be local competition. How many times have we seen companies from out of town win bids? Odd. I don't think it's right for us to do that. Again, I'm not saying there's not ever an opportunity or a reason to do this, but for us to borrow money to buy an asset that we didn't need, I think is irresponsible. Key takeaways. The challenges we face are not insurmountable. All cities will deal with challenges. It's just part of it, right? But we've got to allow ourselves to be a little bit more creative in how we tackle solutions. I think the main problems with our current city government is we don't have professionals in there that know what they're doing when it comes to dealing with city-specific issues. Everybody has their role. It's not a knock against everybody or anyone. But it's extremely hard to do if you don't allocate that time and that motivation to make those types of creative changes. In project management, we call it the 5 whys, where we dig down and we look at root cause analysis. Why are we not able to get things done? It's what we need to do with a lot of our issues. Give ourselves a chance to be creative, whether it's permeable paving or different styles of housing. I think Topeka needs to really focus on the basics. I'm an infantry officer. We do the basics, but we do them very well. All right. We shoot different angles, different positions, but we got to do it really well. City, we're building roads. We need to do that really well because that's our core function of it. Once we get that, then buying hotels and doing other things is all great. Okay, but we've got to do the basics first. So, with that, we'll take some questions and we'll let you guys get out of here. So, thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
I actually have 3 questions, and it all deals with homelessness. You have talked about private-public partnerships. Have you looked at private-private partnerships? So that's the first one. Why is the government involved with it? B, when you move these encampments to certain places, what does it do to those people's property values that are surrounding them? And 3, how the heck are you going to pay for it?
All right, so let's go off the first one real quick. I haven't looked too far into private-private partnerships or non-profit private partnerships. I think there's a way to do, especially when it comes to the urban campgrounds, to where, I know the city has a lot of land that could be used. And we're not talking a ton of land. We're talking no more than the size of this room for a urban campground. When it comes to paying for it, I think I mentioned, I would like to see sponsored encampments. So when we look at downtown Kansas Avenue, we have businesses sponsor different pocket parks. All right, we can do the same thing with urban campgrounds. I believe that this city, and the people within it, are pretty generous individuals. And at a expected cost of around $35,000 to $40,000 a campground, granted that's with donated land from the city, that's very doable with how much we see different companies give to community efforts. All right. Even one campground in each district would be better than what we currently have. Property values is extremely important. Look, nobody wants it in their backyard, right? Whole NIMBY thing. I understand that. Believe it or not, it's the state of New York who started with some of the group homes. And they found when they instituted these types of supportive housing that property values did not decrease. It didn't affect them at all, actually. Why? Because you had someone there paying attention. I can make the argument that an urban campground where we can go in and check and we know where the problems are, it's a public space, is easier to check up on than some private dirtbag landlord who's not keeping up with the maintenance and stuff. Trust me, they're out there. Not all of them, but they are. So it's gonna be a battle. No one is gonna want it in their backyard, but if you make it nice, you have your natural man-made barriers, your defined boundaries, then it can be done. And I can show you some examples, I don't have them on me, of where you see this, especially with tiny home communities in really urban settings. It's a design, there's an emphasis on design, on how you do it. You know, Mr. Falk might be better at answering that. Last thing was how are we gonna afford it? Okay. The money's there. When I talked about the color of money, you know, we collectively, and it's through federal, state funds, it's funneled through the city, a lot of money for homelessness and for housing vouchers. Okay, some of it we'll be able to affect, but some of it we won't be able. We're not going to be able to go to Washington and change who gets what and what standards are for a specific housing voucher. But whatever we can do at the city level to redirect funds into either your urban campgrounds or your supportive housing, tiny homes, etc., then yeah, we've got that money. The city of Topeka Housing Authority built a bunch of brand new duplexes off of Golden. I think it was Golden. It's like 12th and Golden. Nice places. Man, how many container homes can we put up with those same funds? So I don't anticipate having, and I wouldn't advocate to raise any taxes or raise anything. I think the money's there. You got a half-cent sales tax pays for a lot of things throughout the city, and I'm pretty sure we could find some of that money to put on, if we needed to put on other projects. But I do think these things would actually save us money in the long run.
Would it bring more crime into those areas?
No.
They're in those areas already.
Actually, it's not. So when it comes to homeless encampments, if they're smaller, there's usually a whole lot less crime. It's only when they get big and out of
Because they're
control.
grouped together.
When it's a close, tight knit.
Yeah.
Now, if we were to try, hey, say, you know, we're gonna put an acre out here that everyone, no, you don't want that, because then you start seeing internal governance and things that you don't wanna encourage or promote. So, yeah, crime typically isn't an issue. If we've got people in standard locations where they can go, it's a whole lot easier for the organizations who are giving assistance and help, like TRM. It makes them a lot more effective at what they're already doing.
Well, just the maintenance of it though will help maybe reduce the homelessness with all the support and like that. Is that the ultimate goal, or?
Well, I guess I'm not sure if I quite understand the question. Yeah. Maintenance in general on a large scale would be a lot less, because you can do a lot of things to make it maintenance free.
Okay, you do the building, you do the house like that, so you got it where they're surviving and all like that stuff, where they've got something developed.
Yeah.
And So it's all out, is the goal there to?
Yeah,
reduce
the
costs?
idea would be to graduate them up, all right? And you can't just go 0 to 60, right? Unless you're in a Tesla. You gotta go, you know, hey, here's a place where you can't, all right? We can show you have the motivation to move forward, hey, let's get you in a tiny home, or maybe supportive housing is more appropriate for you. I think there are individuals who would probably be a better fit for that, and some that might be a better fit in a tiny home community. I think having as much flexibility as possible is better than being very rigid. We see organizations, faith-based organizations like the Rescue Mission, who are absolutely, you know, it's within their rights to do so, to have specific guidelines. That's them, they're a faith-based organization. I think the city should be a little bit more loose with our restrictions, and get people the help they need. If we know where they are, if they're staying in one spot, a whole lot easier for all these other organizations.
Well, would this get them like off the streets where you, or in areas where they're camping? Could we make it like against the law for them to
Yeah,
be
so
there if we have these
right now-
facilities they can go to?
Right now, the city ordinance is you can camp anywhere on city ground. There is a proposal, I believe, to change it, to where you can't camp within so many feet of, like, say, a bike trail. They call that trail out used to be a rape trail or whatever. So, yeah, I want to repeal that and give people the ability to say, hey, you can't stay here, but you can go a couple blocks down to the certain campground, where there's a bathroom.
Trash.
See,
And a
there's,
trash dumpster.
you were talking about that Shunger Park, but there is private property that butts up right against that. So that 500 yards or 500 meters doesn't mean anything, because they can go on that private property. Those people aren't even there, they don't even live there, they're empty. And we can't do anything about that, because that's private property. So there you have the, now are you familiar with the Johnny Walker over there in Lawrence? You know, their housing, not housing, but.
Behind
let-
Johnny's North.
It didn't work.
I think most of us knew that was it's right north of Johnny's North, up north Massachusetts. I believe it's Mass. No, it's yeah, right across the river. Right behind there is a big plot of land. They wanted to have a giant Taj homeless camp, and it wasn't. So, no, it needs to be smaller encampments. And when it comes to private property, there's really nothing. I mean, we would have to give a mandate to the Topeka Police Department to investigate instances of squatting, because that's what it is. And I don't think we have the resources to do that. I think if it got out of hand, yeah, definitely, but I don't know much about the city of Topeka Police Department. I know that they're short on detectives. I know that people are not happy with the job they're doing with violent crime. So, you know, as a council person, I would want to focus on violent crime first, and make sure we're doing that right before dedicating additional resources to stuff that's hard to control.
Sure. So when you create these things for like the housing and stuff, you don't see that there's gonna be more people coming to Topeka because it's bigger.
I love the argument. I love the argument.
It's gonna be a
So,
fact.
well, yes and no. So, if that were the case, then all of our homeless people live in Hawaii, right? I sat down with Amanda Rose of the Rescue Mission, and I had the exact same question for her, phrased a little bit different, because you will hear some homeless people say, "Well, yeah, I came here for all the benefits." Okay, well, like the Rescue Mission, they have a stipulation now where, hey, you can be here for a couple days, just because we're a faith-based organization. But if you don't have a connection, I forgot how she defined it, to the metropolitan area, then you got to go on that line. And it's unfortunate because as a faith-based organization, they want to help everybody they can, but they understand that it's Topekans that are supporting the rescue mission, so they want to make sure Topekans are supported by the rescue mission. Topeka can do that. We can decipher who has ties. I can go down to vital statistics, or look in there, do a quick background check and say, oh, where did these guys go to school? Okay, you didn't go to school here. You didn't work here. You never done anything here. In fact, it says you're all from Lawrence. Here you go. See on
So you
that
take them
line.
back to Lawrence and drop them off?
You know,
That's what they do come to the beach.
yeah.
The police department drops them off here.
Yeah, and it needs. I lived in Lawrence long enough to know that they have no regard for people in general, and I love KU, but I'm not a big fan of the city arrogance when it comes to speaking, and would love to just drop people off there. Drop off on this. Give them all ukuleles. Busk. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, I mean, there's ways to prevent that from happening. We don't have to. The city doesn't have to give away. So whatever stipulations, I'm not sure what all that looks like, but I know rescue missions have success with their stipulations.
You had mentioned focusing on the core functions of city government. In your mind, what is that, and can you do that, you believe, without raising our taxes?
Yeah, absolutely. You put me on the spot, but public safety, first and foremost, right? Public infrastructure. So, water lines are a big deal, guys. Sewer is a big deal. Spent some time talking about the streets today. So, between those things, I think theirs are really core functions. Okay. Anything beyond that, I'm not saying anything, but a lot of what the city does is window because the next city did it. We feel like we have to do it. Perfect example of that is incentives. We look nationwide, and cities are giving away the farm to attract businesses to come to their city because it brings jobs. We ever do the cost benefit analysis of how much we're giving and how much we're getting. I'd really like to take a look at that. That's the nature of the game right now. But there's, I don't really think Topeka much more than the county. County does a pretty good job of sticking to what they're supposed to be doing. They don't have a big budget. I would say with Topeka, the city, I think we're a lot more bloated. I think we're a lot more. I say this not in a positive way, progressive. We're really going after those incentives, and we're going to spend all this money doing all these great things. And really, if we look at the best things that have happened to Topeka in the last 5 years, we can name a couple of individuals locally who made it happen. I think the guys with Advisors Excel have done a tremendous service to our city. Agree or disagree, Kansas Avenue looks much better than the Cyrus Hotel and all the awesome restaurants they put. Okay? And we have not been kind to them as the city administration. Their challenges with planning and going through some of that process. They just purchased Westridge Mall. Everything, the Gage Center, everything that they put their hands on looks much better, much better. I look at guys like Jim Clausman and Butch Eaton. They have, 29th and Fairlawn is completely changed. These are local guys. Ken Schmick just took over the Topeka Tower. I don't know about the squiggly line, but I'll tell you what, it looks a lot better. It looks a lot better. And these are individuals who live here, doing business here, have given it, multiple attempts to make it better. I think we need to reward those individuals for what they do. I'd like to see incentives go to them, because I tell you what, if we're going to give it to anyone, I'd rather be in our own backyard. So I'm sure I'm leaving other people out, but we have a lot of great people in Topeka. What we did in Noto and what we did on Kansas Avenue are testaments to what Topeka can accomplish. So, all right. With that, thank you for coming. I really
Hey,
appreciate it.
hey, Craig, talk about the signs. What's the deal?
Oh yeah, if you guys want a sign, you'd be definitely go ahead and take one on your way out. If you want some extra palm cards, I'd love for you guys to go promote my candidacy.
I got some spots on Urich.
Why not?
I better look good on that road.
Hey, Joan, thank you for coming. We got some VIPs. Eric, thank you. Hey, Linnell, let's talk a little. Say hey. We got a dinner coming up.
We got a dinner.
Promote it.
Oh, now October 20th will be our 8th annual Eisenhower dinner. Date recently changed, October 20th now, and Congressman Jake LaTurner will be our keynote speaker.
Thank you.
Yes.
And Bill, thank you for coming. County Commissioner. And thank you, everybody. I'm his treasurer, and if you'd like to leave a donation, I'm your guy right here. So thank you.
Great treasure, right?